What's up, my lovelies? My name is Dr. Lisa Mateka, and I help those with cancer navigate their inner journey towards health and wellness on all levels physically, mentally, emotionally, energetically, and spiritually. And today I'm just going to do a shorter video, just sort of expanding upon and talking about some nuances from prior themes, particularly fear and fear versus love. So let's dive right in then. So, yeah, fear is a really big topic when it comes to cancer. There's lots of fears that come up, and totally understandably so. And the important thing is to, not to bury these fears, but also not to get buried in them. So, it's of course not healthy or good to be completely living in this fear and taken over by it, and also not to repress and suppress it. But let's talk a little bit about some of the fears. So obviously there's going to be a lot of times a fear of mortality, a fear of death. It can be a life or death situation. So this is a more primal survival instinct type fear, coming from, our evolutionary biology, coming from the amygdala. So that is very understandable. But that can't be said about all other fears when it comes to cancer. There's a lot of them that are not rooted in this survival fear. So there's so many fears. There's fear of the treatment. Will it hurt? Will it be uncomfortable? Will it be an annoyance? Will it interrupt my routine, my day? Will I be able to work? Will I be a burden on my family? Will I have to change my lifestyle now? A lot of these types of fears are stemming from the need for certainty. A lot of us have a need for certainty. Where there's certainty, there's security, there's predictability, there's safety. And cancer totally throws us into the unknown. And a fear of the unknown is scary because it's unknown. So there's that to keep in mind. A lot of times this is coming from our need to control. People who have a need to control especially will have a hard time with this and the types of fears I just mentioned. And then there's also fears that stem from fear of loss of identity and loss of significance. And a good example of this is commonly in women who are caretakers and nurturers, and suddenly they have cancer and they're not able to perform their usual duties and to be in their usual role. In fact, there may be a role reversal where somebody actually has to take care of them for once, and they have a really hard time with this. They feel like they're losing their identity and their significance and, their usefulness and who they are. It's what they identify with. And this can actually happen for men as well. Men are oftentimes still feeling like they have to be the primary breadwinners, and when cancer knocks them out of the game, this disruption in their work, in their ability to contribute, can really lead to these same types of fears: fear of loss of identity and loss of significance. So these are just things to keep in mind, because a lot of times when fears come up, we just sort of let them take over us, or like I said, we just try to repress and bury. But usually people don't take the time to just sit with them, let them come up, and just sort of be curious and be a witness, and with non-judgment towards self, and just ask the better questions like, where is this coming from? What is being shown to me right now? Why do I feel this way? Sometimes the answers are, not sometimes, the answers are within us, and sometimes we can access them if we just ask these questions and take the time to reflect and sit with these feelings and these things. Because really, external events such as cancer, they are reflectors and magnifiers of what's already inside of us. And that can be said about any external event, because an event is just an event. We can, we can say everything is neutral. Money, technology, it's how we perceive it that makes it good or bad, and what we do with it that makes it good or bad. And the same can be said about any event. It's neutral. and it's really the meaning we give it and that determine what it means for us. I didn't really want to get into, so I'm going on a tangent now. I didn't really want to get into that whole thing. But what is relevant about it is that the event, the cancer, it can bring up certain things in us, and it's not necessarily the cancer causing it. It's just being a reflector and a magnifier of stuff that's already in us. So what's coming up and how we're showing up. It's really, really good to look at these things. It's actually, cancer provides us that beautiful opportunity to really get to know ourselves and, you know, maybe some of the things that are holding us back and some of the patterns we have and some of the limiting beliefs we have. It's a great opportunity to actually be able to be aware of those now and see them as they come up. With something as intense as cancer, it brings that stuff up to the surface. So, yeah. And so I guess the question then is, how do we get rid of these fears? And the answer is, we don't really get rid of them. And it doesn't need to be seen that way, that we just need to get rid of all this. So think of it like courage is not having fear. It's having the fear and choosing to move forward anyways. It's not taking counsel from the fear. It's not letting fear run the show. It's not being a puppet to fear. It's not letting fear drive the car, kicking it to the back seat. Don't even let it mess with the music or the AC. I think you get my point. It's just how we deal with it. It's just not letting it run the show. So it's okay to have these fears. Definitely be gentle and loving with yourself. And speaking of love, love and fear are opposing forces. So love is the antidote to fear. And in fact, that was one of the one of the foundational factors in Kelly A. Turner's research on spontaneous remission in cancer patients. I talk about this a lot, so you may have heard this already. But the number one was strong reasons for living, and that's where cancer patients that had a radical remission, they focused on their strong why, and it was noted that an important part of this was they focused on moving towards something they love, not away from something they fear. So choosing love over fear, it's just a matter of a little perspective change. Choosing that love focus over that fear focus. And how do we do this? I'd like to think of it like a radio station. So songs are playing all the time on radio stations. It's just we don't hear them unless we tune into that frequency. So we can tune into the fear frequency. It's there all the time. We can tune into the love frequency. It's also there all the time. It's just kind of more our default to tune into the fear. It's a lot easier for one, and it's a lot natural. Again, going back to evolutionary biology, our amygdala is on the alert for danger, those sorts of things. But without going on a science tangent, yes, it's easier to tune into fear. So it takes a conscious effort and practice and consistency to be like, oh, okay. And this is after you do the practice of, like, you know, sitting with your fears, kind of figuring out where they're coming from, what they mean. You know, when we have like somewhat of an understanding of them, don't have to have a full understanding, but then we can choose to tune into love instead. And so how do you tune out of fear? I mean, really the way to tune out of it is to tune into something else, such as, yes, you guessed it, love. And that means love not just for other people, that means love for yourself as well, especially. So giving yourself that love and that grace, and it's kind of a hard thing to verbalize. It's an experience that will make a lot more sense once you really put it into practice for yourself. So keep it in your awareness and keep it in your heart space. It reminds me of something actually not too long ago. I had a breathwork ceremony, and one of the messages I got was, let in the love, let out the fear. And I was like, I've already done a lot of this love fear work. And I was like, I'm already a really loving person. I've already worked on a lot of my fears, but I guess this is the message, so I'll go with it. And I kept it in my awareness. I kept it in my heart. Wasn't really sure like what I was supposed to do with this. And So that's what I'm asking you to do. Keep it in your heart space and your awareness, and you will find where it makes sense and what to do with it. I have a weird example, maybe not totally relatable to what all of you are going through. But with that same example, like, okay, let in the love, love over fear. And that's one of the, also, it's been said that's one of the purposes of life, is to learn and evolve to choose love over fear in ever more challenging circumstances. And cancer is a very challenging circumstance. So trying to tune into that love and out of that fear, that's going to be where it's at. But how this showed up for me, a really little weird example again. I was doing an energetic healing on somebody, a pranic healing, and there's these like motions you do where you're like scooping and sweeping the congested or negative energy out of somebody. And I was really focused, I take it very seriously. So I was really focusing and I was like fervently like sweeping. I just wanted to get it all, And it was a certain energy and it clicked in me, okay. Not that it was completely fear-based, but kind of, because I was like worried about getting it all. I was worried about making sure I was doing a good job. I was like, okay, let's replace this sort of energy with more love. Let's let in more love. And my emotions got a little more flowy and gentle, but really it was just the energy I imbued was more like I just gave, I don't know how to explain it. I just sort of like gave more, I like attacked it with love essentially, rather than like focus and fervor. So it apparently had a noticeable effect on the client. They definitely noticed a more powerful shift with that. So any ways you can do it, just try to focus on tuning into more love, letting in more love, and tuning out of that fear. This also kind of reminds me, not completely off topic, it reminds me very much of the thing I've heard, where maybe you've heard it too, that anxiety and excitement are actually the same root energy. It's just that energy changes because one is filtered through a negative belief and one is filtered through a positive belief. You could say one is filtered through fear, anxiety, and the other one is filtered through love, excitement. Otherwise, it does, when you think about it, it's like, oh, that makes sense. It is kind of like the same energy. But like one turns to excitement because there's like positive anticipation, and then one turns into anxiety because there's like negative anticipation and fear and all these sorts of things that come up in us. So sometimes it's just a small energetic shift. But yeah, I guess that is all I will say for today. There's so much more that can be said on love versus fear, but I'm just going to keep this sort of short and sweet, just a little nugget. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you all next time. Please, if you don't mind, like and subscribe and share so that these messages can reach more people that, may benefit them. And with that being said, yep, that's it for now. All right. Peace and much love.